Hey everyone. Today, we're going to talk about something deep inside your outboard engine that you probably never think about. That is, until it leaves you stranded. I'm talking about the fuel pump. Now, I know it's not the most exciting part, but trust me, getting this one component right is the difference between an amazing day on the water and a very, very long call for a tow. I want you to just picture this for a second. You're miles from the dock, the family's having a great time, and then silence. Your engine just quits. That's a real story from a marine mechanic with 20 years of experience. The cause? A cheap pump that only lasted 35 hours. It's a powerful reminder that trying to save a few bucks on a critical part can cost you big time. The stakes are really high with this one, so let's get into why.
So, to really appreciate the fix, we first have to get our heads around the problem. And for a whole lot of older outboards, the problem starts right here, with the original mechanical fuel pump. Let's take a look at why this heart of the engine can be, well, so unreliable.
So, the whole idea behind a mechanical pump is pretty basic. Its performance is literally tied to how fast your engine is spinning. If you've got an outboard built before, say, the mid-2000s, you almost certainly have one of these. A little rod inside gets pushed by the engine's spinning parts, which flexes a rubber diaphragm back and forth, sucking fuel in and pushing it out. Simple, right? Yeah, but it's also got some major flaws.
And this is the real kicker. When you're just idling or trolling really slow, your engine is barely turning over. That means the pump is barely moving too, and the fuel pressure just plummets. You ever wonder why older engines have that manual primer bulb you gotta squeeze over and over? It's a band-aid. It's a workaround for this exact issue. The pump just can't supply steady fuel at low speeds, and that's what leads to stalling, hard starts, and all those other headaches.
And don't think this is some rare thing. The data from the Marine Mechanics Institute really shows you the scale of this problem. A whopping 35% of all service calls for older outboards are because of fuel delivery issues. And a failing mechanical pump? It's one of the main culprits. It is the #1 reason these engines end up in the repair shop.
But, it gets way worse than just bad performance. These pumps can fail in a way that's truly catastrophic. Remember that little rubber diaphragm? Well, after years of sitting in fuel and getting hot and cold, it gets hard and brittle and then it cracks. A mechanic told me about a 2001 Mercury he worked on where this exact thing happened. Fuel started leaking directly into the engine's crankcase, watering down the oil. If the owner hadn't caught it, that engine would have seized up solid. Total loss.
Okay, enough with the doom and gloom. We've seen the villain in our story. So now let's bring in the hero, the modern electric fuel pump. This is the upgrade that solves every single one of those problems we just talked about.
I mean, you just put them side by side and it's night and day. Instead of depending on engine speed, the electric pump has its own little 12-volt motor. That means it delivers constant, stable fuel pressure, whether you're at a dead idle or wide-open throttle. And because it pressurizes the whole system the second you turn the key, yep, that annoying primer bulb becomes a thing of the past.
Now here's a huge benefit, especially for those of us who boat on hot days. Vapor lock. It's when the fuel in the line gets so hot it literally starts to boil and turns into gas, which starves the engine. Well, because an electric pump keeps that line pressurized all the time, it physically stops the fuel from boiling. A 70% reduction in that problem. That's a massive, massive improvement. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is real-world proof. Check out this quote from Captain Mike Smith. When you're a charter captain and your boat has to run perfectly every single day, that kind of reliability isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely essential. It's his livelihood. All right, so we know it's more reliable on paper. But what does this upgrade actually feel like when you're out on the boat? Let's talk about the real, tangible improvements you are going to notice right away. The data really tells the story here. First off, hard starts. According to Mercury Marine, complaints about hard starting dropped by 75%. No more cranking and cranking on a cold morning. You turn the key, it just fires right up. Next up, your wallet is going to thank you. Shop tests on classic carbureted motors show about an 8% improvement in fuel economy. Why? Because that steady, consistent pressure leads to a much more complete and efficient fuel burn. And finally, how long is this thing going to last? Well, a proper marine-certified pump is built tough to handle the salt, the moisture, the vibration, all of it. They last nearly 5 times longer than trying to use a cheap automotive part in a boat. But honestly, the benefits go way beyond the numbers. I heard a story about an old Evinrude 115 that would stall every single time the owner came off plane to slow down. An electric pump fixed it, just like that.
You're going to feel a smoother throttle, the engine will actually run quieter without the clack, clack, clack of the old mechanical pump, and your spark plugs will even be cleaner next time you service it. It's a total game changer for the whole experience.
Okay, so let's say I've convinced you. You're ready to make the upgrade. Now for the really important part. How do you actually pick the right pump? This is definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation, and getting this wrong can be really dangerous. So let's walk through a super simple guide to make sure you get the perfect part for your engine. We can break this whole process down into 4 simple but absolutely critical steps. You've got to match the fuel pressure, you need to verify the flow rate, you have to make sure it's rated for continuous duty, and you must insist on marine safety certification. Let's break each one down.
All right, listen up, because this is the single most important rule, and it is non-negotiable. You have to match the pressure to your engine. Carbureted engines need very low pressure, like 3 to 6 psi. Modern fuel-injected engines, they need way more. If you put a high-pressure pump on a carbureted engine, you will blow right past the carburetor's safety valves. You will flood your engine with raw gasoline, and you will create an insane fire hazard. Do not get this wrong.
Next up is flow rate. This is measured in gallons per hour, or GPH. Think of it like this. Your engine gets really thirsty at full throttle. The general rule is to pick a pump that can supply at least 15% more fuel than your engine's maximum thirst. That little buffer makes sure the engine never ever starves for fuel, even when you're pushing it hard.
I'm going to say this as clearly as I possibly can. An engine compartment in a boat is a sealed box that can fill up with explosive gas fumes. A fuel pump for a car is not sealed, and its motor can create tiny sparks. A tiny spark plus gas fumes equals a boat-destroying explosion. So, never, and I mean ever, use a car's fuel pump on a boat, period.
So what do you look for? You need to find a pump that is certified as ignition protected. The 2 big ones to look for are UL 1500 and SAE J1171. These aren't just suggestions. They are U.S. Coast Guard requirements for a reason. They guarantee the pump is totally sealed and is safe to use in a marine engine bed. And that brings us right back to where we started. From that stranded family to the science of how fuel gets delivered, it all comes down to one simple word: consistency. The fuel pump really is the heart of your outboard, and a strong, steady, reliable heart means you can have worry-free days out on the water. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, can you trust yours?